Hey everyone, my name's Lily and I'm the book blogger behind Utopia State of Mind, and today I'm bringing you the last part of the Bookstagram 3000 subscribers Q&A. This is going to be related to books. I realize I look very different than I do normally. I was just having an off day and I knew I needed to film something, but was not like feeling in the mood to put makeup on or like do much of anything. I'm in my pajamas. You can't really tell because I just wear like normal t-shirts to bed. And this is just how I woke up today. So I also have a cup of cocoa as well because this is just the kind of day it is. I was debating and even filming anything today because I thought, oh, I don't really feel so fantastic. I definitely don't want to wear makeup. It's been one of those days/weeks. But I also felt like on a lot of my other social media channels, I'm more, not real, but like I let the days where I don't feel well or like the days when things are going wrong kind of show through more. And it's definitely something I want to be better at doing in the future. But I realized on YouTube, like, I'm only really posting things with, like, a lot of makeup on, and lately not a lot of face makeup because my face has been feeling very, like, dry from wearing foundation all the time for videos. But also, you know, eyebrows and eyeliner and lipstick and, like, all sorts of things. And I realized I haven't done really one where I'm, like, just barefaced and just, this is how I am. So, this is how I am. And yeah, I thought I would do it for a Q&A because, you know, why not? So I have the questions on my phone. I'm going to be taking drinks of my cocoa because my throat also hurts. So, you know, just a list of like reasons why I shouldn't be filming this video. Where is it? I have so many notes on my phone because I do a note for each book that I read. So I have so many notes on my phone that are just like, oh, a line in the dark. And it's like, we did that for backlist bookworms 5 million years ago, so we don't have to look at it anymore. Okay, so finally here. So I'm doing these are all book-related questions. The first is, what book got you into reading? So this is kind of tricky. I feel like I've always been into reading. One of my earliest memories, I guess, for reading, I really liked reading the Magic Treehouse books growing up. I really liked reading the Encyclopedia Brown books because at the time I was reading that, I think around 1st and 2nd grade, it's just like Nancy Drew wasn't there for me. And then by the time I kind of finished with that, I just moved on to different topics entirely. And basically just moved on to like Tamara Pierce. But books, it's hard to like think of a book that got me into reading. I've always loved books. So in a previous video somewhere in the internet, previous YouTube video, I talked about being like a small child with a lot of books and me and my sister taking out books. So I feel like I've always really been into reading. There wasn't really a book that got me into reading, I guess. And when I think about why, like my parents have always enjoyed reading and my dad always has an audiobook in the car. So I feel like it's just something that I kind of picked up, I guess. What is your most recommended book? I think my most recommended book has to be the Reader trilogy. So it's not like one book, I guess it's a trilogy, but the first one's called The Reader by Tracy Chee. That is one of the first like YA fantasies I read that I really loved. And it's also one that's so underhyped, and also the people that I've recommended to have really loved it. So it only kind of increases my desire to keep on recommending it, because if you don't want me to keep recommending books, you have to tell me that the recommendations I'm giving aren't good. Because if you tell me that they're still good, I will keep recommending them. That's just how it is. So that's probably my most recommended book. It would be interesting to go onto my blog and see like what the most popular post is. I think that it's something super random. So actually, I can't think of it now, but maybe editing me can think about it now and then put it somewhere on the screen. How do you overcome a reading block? Look, if I knew how to overcome a reading block, like, I would be a superhero. I think I'm currently kind of in a reading slump. So what I will say, tips that have helped me out of reading slumps in the past. The first one is to vary the genre or type of book I'm reading, right? So for example, if I've been reading a lot of fantasies and I'm just like not feeling the fantasy thing, I will then have to read like a contemporary, or, well, maybe not a sci-fi, but a contemporary, for example. Or do a middle grade, like switch up the genre, switch up the audience levels. So, you know, middle grade, YA, adult, graphic novel. So switch up the audience level, switch up the genre, switch up the mediums, maybe go to an audiobook or a graphic novel, or, you know, something to like get your brain adapting to something new, I guess, and maybe something else. And then another thing is like, for me, a lot of my reading blocks or reading slumps stem from the fact that I'm pushing so much. I'm pushing so many books into my life, into my brain. Currently now, I think I'm reading 5 books, and really I'm like a one book at a time kind of person. So as you can tell, that's not great. So I think part of my reading slump / reading blocks stem from the fact that you can get into this cycle where you have all this guilt and this pressure, like, oh, I should be reading, but I'm not reading, and then you want to read, but like, you know, you feel guilty and there's so much to catch up on, and like, so I think the biggest thing is like, give yourself a break, drink some hot cocoa, do a face mask, don't read for a little bit, but also free yourself of either the necessity to read or like the feeling of why you need to read. And also think about, why do you need to read? Like, what brings you back to reading? Maybe even make a list if that helps you. But like, what makes you think that you need to read right now? And what even draws you to the joy of reading? Or like, what do you get from reading? And I think maybe if you think about those, you can tackle, okay, the reason why I think I should be reading is because I think I'm a book blogger and I think I need to be reading all the time, because if I don't post any content, then I won't be like a real book blogger, and then no one will talk to me, and like then I will essentially crumble into internet dust. If that's the reason, then really try, what I'm trying to do is really try to think about, we live in somewhat of a culture or somewhat of an internet culture that values hyper productivity. And so, and on social media, like the necessity to kind of be there all the time is something that's constructed for the internet, right? So you don't need to post a photo every day on Instagram if you're not feeling it. You don't need to post a book review every Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the rest of your life, right? Like, you don't have to. You can make your book blogging hobby work for you the best way that it does. And if you're not a book blogger, and if you're just like a normal avid bookworm, think about, why do you feel like you need to be reading right now? Is it because you feel bad that you haven't read in a while? Do you feel like if you don't read, you're less legitimate or less valid of a reader? Like, that's not true, okay? So that's what I mean by try to think about why you feel like you need to read, and then also think about, what do you even love about reading? Like, what do you get from reading? Do you get enjoyment? Do you get, you know, visions of the future? Like, what do you get from it? And try to find that disconnect between them. That's just my advice. I don't know. Look, I'm in a reading slump too. Like, I don't really know what to tell you. 2020 and 2021 have been trash fire years. Like, look, if you're not in a reading slump, you're doing fabulous. If you are in a reading slump, you're also doing fabulous. Like, this is just kind of the world we're living in at the moment. TLDR is just like, get yourself a mug of tea and like cut yourself a break, essentially. What has been your most difficult read recently? My most difficult reads are normally based on hype and expectation. So more like hype for people thinking that this is like the best book. Most recently, it's been that way with me and The Secret History. But I guess that's what I think about when I think of my most difficult read, is books where I'm like, why everyone really loves this? Like, what am I missing particularly? And then difficult in another sense, obviously the content can be difficult for a book, but then like put it down, come back to it later. And what other difficult things? I feel like I struggle sometimes not being in the right mental headspace for a book. And in the past, I've kind of pushed through that and been like, oh, I have to read. Like, it doesn't matter how I feel. It doesn't matter if I want to put it down. Like, I have to keep reading. And that obviously creates a cycle in which it's like, oh, I'm not enjoying this, but I have to keep reading, but I'm not enjoying this. And so it creates this like just altogether negative experience. And so for that one, it's kind of like going back to my reading slump answer, right? Just take a step back, and one of the best things about books is that they'll always be there for you. They'll always be there. If you don't read a book before it releases, it's okay. It's gonna release. You can read it. If you don't read a book in that for that TBR, like that month's TBR, it's also okay, right? Like, do what is good for you, and do what's good for you, and also make sure that you're there tomorrow for reading, right? If that means take a break today, take a break today. If that means buy some enamel pins today, buy some enamel pins today, right? Like, try to go with what feels rejuvenative. Yeah, basically. Because if you stress yourself out, if you kind of make it so reading becomes a chore, or reading this book particularly becomes that way for you, you're not going to want to read anymore, right? Like, it's just going to create a very bad, sad cycle. Stranded on a desert island and only 3 books. Yo, this is like one of those questions that people get all the time, and it's like one of those cruel questions. I can't pick 3 books. So I'm going to pick 3 series. And the 3 series I guess I'll pick The Reader, because that's held up when I did a reread of it. It held up for me. So it's like one of those books where I know that if I reread it over and over again, it would still hold up, because it did. What other books held up for rereads? Oh, The Bone Witch ones too. I think that maybe I'd pick, okay, I think I picked The Reader, The Poppy War, because I also feel like sometimes reading a book a second time is going to help me really get everything I want from the book, and like get everything that I feel like should come from the book into my brain, because sometimes I don't have enough brain cells to read. It's just how it is. And then the third one, I don't know, I want to say Jade City, but like Jade Legacy hasn't come out yet. But Jade City or Jade War made me cry, and so I feel like that's a really good sign. And it also has a different vibe than The Reader and The Poppy War. So hopefully they would, like, you know, suit a different reading need for me. What book made you go on a reading slump? Normally, okay, books don't normally make me go on reading slumps. Like, for me, I feel like when I have a reading slump, it's basically just me feeling too overwhelmed to read, and I think it has an emotional kind of mental connection to my mental state and my life, like my real life at that point. Not one book makes me go on a reading slump. It's more just books and books and books and books. I feel like this year in 2021, and maybe it's because there are so many things going on in my personal life that are just emotionally exhausting and taxing at the moment, but I feel like the burnout from the last 3 years or last 4 years vlogging, oh my god, wait, 5 years this year, last 4 years vlogging is catching up to me hard. Like, I mean, today is one of the worst days, evidenced by my total lack of preparation for this video, and so maybe I'm not in the best mental space right now to answer these questions, but you know, today I just don't want to read anymore, and I already pushed myself to read, but like, I just don't want to do it anymore. And it's not that I don't want to do it anymore, period. I think I'm going to take a weekend break, like a solid 2-3 days worth of break, and from just blog work and like book reading work in general. All week this week I've been reading the same amount, and also writing 2 book reviews a day, among other things like filming and stuff like that, and I just, it's a lot. I love how this video, this Bookstagram Q&A, which is like, yay, 3,000 subscribers, fun celebration, also bringing the mood down hard. Favorite childhood book, and do you still love it? This is really difficult. I'm gonna do favorite teen book. I loved the Old Kingdom trilogy by Garth Nix, so Sabria, Liriel, and Abhorsen. Don't know how you say any of those names, really, just, you know, pick it like I think it is. I have not done a reread in that for a really long time, like 4 years, basically right before I started blogging. So yeah, that's one of the series which I think will probably hold up, I hope. But that's definitely one of the series. And another like really nostalgic series for me is Wild Magic, or the Dane series from Tamora Pierce. Dane, at the time that I read it, it's interesting because I had read Alana right before Dane, and at the time I loved Alana, but like this idea that you could be this really strong lady knight, like I loved it. It was definitely something I needed to see in my life, but that just wasn't me. Like I have small arms. I'm trying to do this 3-week arm course. I was supposed to do some today and I won't do any today, but like I couldn't imagine myself becoming a knight, but what I could imagine myself is having magic and talking to animals. But they have strengths in different ways, and for me, just Alana was like someone I wanted to be, and then Dane was someone I could be, I guess, if that makes any logical sense. What is my favorite book from a genre I don't normally read? Mexican Gothic horror. I rarely read horror. Is big scaredy cat. Someone the other day was like, so you're the type of person who loves zombie movies but also can't watch them. And yes, this is me. I really want to see The Kingdom. Very scared to see The Kingdom. Maybe I'll spend half of my day today watching The Kingdom. I'm one of those people not cut out for horror at all, but Mexican Gothic was pure atmosphere, pure brilliance. Like, so good. If you have not read it, if you have not read it, wait, why am I saying that wrong? It's because whenever I think of Reddit, I think of now Reddit. If you have not read it, please do. What is your favorite earliest child memory related to reading? This definitely has to be the story, which now I've told like a few different times, about being a child and, you know, trying to scam my mom out of getting as many children's picture books as I can. But I guess another childhood memory is also like seeing the underbelly, I guess, or like the space underneath the piano being full of row and rows of picture books. Like, it just makes me happy. I love books. I love seeing them around. And I also love supporting my local library. Like, I grew up using my library, and it's why I didn't really have a lot of books growing up as a kid, because you could get a lot from the library, and I was at the library like multiple times a week, okay? I don't think I really, when I was a teen, I barely bought books, okay? I didn't have any money to buy books. I would get like an allowance maybe, but like, okay, if I had, so for example, a $20 allowance, which I don't even remember how much money I had, but if I had one, which like, I don't think actually I got that much money, but if I did, $20 would have been roughly like one book. And yes, right now I'm like, oh yeah, that's worth it. But at teen me, when I could just go to the library and get all the books I wanted, and I didn't care about cultivating a shelf of books, you know, I could get a t-shirt at Hot Topic for 20 bucks essentially. So I lived at the library. And so the library is still one of the most nostalgic and like comfiest places to go to when I go back to my hometown. And so I guess that's also like a favorite childhood memory. What is a book that had a huge impact on your life and how? Oof. Okay. This is what I'm gonna say. Okay, so Eat, Pray, Love. In hindsight, I don't really feel like it had a great impact on my life, because I read it and I was like, oh, this is cool. It's like, okay, I guess. I don't love it necessarily, but it's okay. But it's one of the first, if not the first, review I posted on my blog that kickstarted this whole thing. And so I feel like for that reason, it obviously made a huge impact on my life because it started this whole journey. But also, like, I really wish it wasn't Eat, Pray, Love. Like, I just wish that past me, I don't even know. Maybe it wasn't Eat, Pray, Love. Maybe it was something else. But, like, I just wish that past me had not made that choice, I guess. So that's a contender. And what is another contender for that one? I mean, I guess the Old Kingdom books are like a really good example, because I've bought a copy in every, I was gonna say about a copy in every country I live in, but I mean, it's valid. So what is your favorite middle grade? I actually just recently posted a video of all of my favorite middle grades from 2020, so I will direct you to that video because I can't pick a favorite. Those were also only 9 that were my favorite from 2020. It doesn't even include like the rest of my life essentially, but that's just gonna have to be my answer because I'm overwhelmed and I can't think of like one specific favorite middle grade at this moment. If you had one day to live, what would the last book you read be? Woof. Okay. If today was the last day I lived, which would be like, okay, I probably spent the rest of the day watching Netflix. But what would I want it to be? This is tricky. I feel very torn between wanting to read The Ones We're Meant to Find and The Forest of Stolen Girls. Those are 2 of my most anticipated 2021 releases, and I haven't read them yet, but I have e-arcs of them, and it's like one of those things where I'm trying to read always my schedule because I'm trying to be a good book reviewer and like always do it according to my schedule. But if I could just like completely throw my TBR schedule out the window, I would be reading those books like yesterday. A recent book that made you laugh. This is the last question. A recent book that made you laugh. What recent book did make me laugh? I laughed a lot when I was reading Winter's Orbit, actually, by Verena Maxwell. That one was really funny, and also, well, it wasn't necessarily like, it's not a, I mean, it's not a comedy, it's a space romance, a sci-fi romance. But the characters in it were very quirky and they also said really funny things. So it's like, that I guess really made me laugh. And I think it was like the last book that really did make me laugh. Why am I so cold? I'm dead inside. So yeah, that's definitely the last book I can think of that really made me laugh. But yeah, that was the last part of my Bookstagram 3,000 subscribers Q&A. I'm under 100 away from 4K. So, you know, by the time that you see this video, maybe I'll be there and maybe I'll have done like another Q&A. I don't really know, honestly. But I hope you had a fun time. I know that today's video was very rambly and not put together in my face and, you know, for you all. So I apologize for that, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you also enjoyed maybe seeing a little bit maybe more of me than you would see in like a reviewing video, but also maybe like a little bit more real side of me, I guess, and like vulnerable side. Do I say vulnerable? That makes me feel really like, ooh, that makes me feel really scared. But yeah, I hope you had a really fun time watching this. I will see you in the next video. Don't know what the next video will be, but I will see you there. I hope you have a great day, and yeah, drink a cup of tea, take a break. That's all I can say. Bye!